Hello, everyone. You're watching Fuos Empire. My name is Diufet Joseph, and today I want to share something that matters.
Stop blaming. Most people will die without ever meeting the person they were capable of becoming. Potential is everywhere, yet excellence remains rare. Most people want their life to change. They want better opportunities, better income, better relationships, and better results. But if you pay attention closely, most people are waiting for something else to change first. They're waiting for their parents to understand them. They're waiting for the economy to improve. They're waiting for circumstances to become perfect. And while they wait, life passes. This video is not about luck, privilege, or talent. It's about the silent shift that changes lives more than anything else. The day a person stops blaming and starts taking responsibility. Most people move through life pointing fingers at everyone except themselves. They blame their parents for what they didn't learn. They blame the economy for the money they don't have. They blame society for not giving them a fair chance. And in doing so, they create a comfortable story that explains why they're stuck. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Blame feels good, but it changes nothing. Blame is soothing because it gives us a simple answer. It tells us that nothing is our fault. It tells us that we're not responsible for what happens. It tells us that we don't need to do anything different. But that narrative, as comforting as it sounds, traps us in place. The moment life truly begins to shift is not when the world finally becomes easier, kinder, or more stable. It's not when conditions improve or when the economy changes or when someone finally comes to save us. It's when we finally say, "This is my life, and I am responsible for what I do with it." That single decision changes everything. Blame makes you weak. Responsibility makes you powerful because blame hands control away, while responsibility takes control back. When you blame your parents, you're saying your life is stuck in your childhood. When you blame the economy, you're saying your potential is controlled by the market. When you blame your past, you're saying your future is owned by what has already happened. And when you believe that, life becomes heavy. Not because it actually is, but because you've surrendered your ability to influence it. Responsibility flips the script. Responsibility says, maybe I didn't choose what hurt me, but I get to choose what I do next. And that shift matters more than any external advantage. Because your response is what builds direction. Your response is what builds resilience. Your response is what builds confidence. And most importantly, your response is the only thing the world cannot take from you. Some people hear this idea and get defensive. They say it sounds harsh. They argue that not everything in life is their fault. And they're correct, not everything is your fault. But responsibility was never about fault, it was about power. If someone betrays you, that is not your fault. But healing is your responsibility. If you grew up without guidance, that is not your fault. But learning is your responsibility. If the economy shifts and jobs disappear, that is not your fault. But adapting is your responsibility. This is how growth works. You don't control what happens, but you control how you meet it. Responsibility gives you leverage. It puts the steering wheel back in your hands. It turns you from a passenger into a driver. Life doesn't suddenly become easy, but it becomes navigable. Look around at the people who are stuck. Notice how they repeat the same complaints for years. Notice how their problems rarely change. Notice how their story stays the same, no matter how much time passes. It's because blame feels comfortable, and comfort kills growth. The people who transform their lives are almost never the ones who had the best starting point. They are the ones who accepted responsibility for where they were and moved forward from there. Some of the most successful people in history began with nothing, no support, no guidance, no safety net. Yet they built lives that many admire today. Not because their conditions changed, but because their mindset did. Blame is seductive because it creates a clean narrative. This happened to me, therefore I am stuck. This person hurt me, therefore I cannot trust again. I wasn't taught this, therefore I cannot learn. It gives you a story that explains your pain, but it also freezes your progress. Responsibility creates a different narrative. Yes, it hurt. Yes, it was unfair. Yes, I wish it didn't happen. But what comes next is up to me. This narrative may feel heavier at first, but in the long run, it sets you free. There will always be things you cannot control. Your childhood, your genetics, your past mistakes, the economy, the world around you. But none of those things dictate who you become. What dictates who you become is how you respond to them. Every transformation story begins with the same turning point. The moment someone stops blaming something external and starts owning their next step. Even in psychology, there's a concept called locus of control. People with an external locus believe life happens to them. People with an internal locus believe life responds to them. Research shows that the second group consistently achieves more progress, even in harder conditions. Maybe you faced heartbreak, trauma, or failure. These things are real. They shape you. They matter. But they do not get to define you unless you allow them to. The moment you stop blaming is the moment you start building. Building discipline, building resilience, building skills, building emotional strength, building a future that isn't chained to the past. And here's the twist. Responsibility doesn't just change your circumstances, it changes how you see yourself. When you take ownership, you begin to trust yourself. You begin to rely on yourself. You begin to build a relationship with yourself that is based on competence, not excuses. Confidence does not come from compliments. Confidence comes from proof. Proof that you can do difficult things. Proof that you can adapt. Proof that you can improve. And you only get that proof by taking responsibility for your life. So ask yourself, are you willing to stop blaming? Are you willing to take ownership of what comes next? Are you willing to let go of the story that keeps you stuck, even if that story feels comfortable? Because your life doesn't change when someone apologizes. It doesn't change when the economy recovers. It doesn't change when politicians fix the world. It changes when you do. From this point forward, remind yourself you do not need to control everything, but you must control your response. That is where your power is. That is where your freedom is. And that is where your next chapter begins. If this message resonates with you, then don't let it end here. Take one step today, no matter how small, that shifts responsibility back into your hands. Your future doesn't care where you started. It cares about what you do next. One day, you will look in the mirror and realize the person you were meant to become has been waiting the entire time. The question is simple. Will you answer the call or silence it again tomorrow? Thank you for watching, and if you want more content that helps you grow, reflect, and take control of your life, consider sticking around for the next video. Your new chapter starts now.